Make sure you start recording before the meeting starts. Okay.
There's Andy.
Yeah. So
Hi.
it's recording right now then.
Should I just leave it?
Yeah, you can. It doesn't hurt to leave it recording. You're the one that's going to listen to it for the meeting.
No, I don't listen to that. I listen to this. I'm old faithful here.
Can you hear me, John?
Yes, I can.
All right. Hope you guys don't mind I'm admitting people.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
I'm going to go ahead and mute since I'm not going to be on for a while.
You might be on.
While we're waiting, I apologize for not realizing what was happening there with my calendar. I was trying to update my calendar with this meeting, June 2nd. So I just copied and then pasted on the dates. And apparently it picked up the invitation for the meeting with Microsoft Teams and sent out notices. Now that I know.
That's what happens when you let these old guys have technology.
Yep, Apple got me again, or Google in this case. It's supposed to make life simpler. It's more dangerous, actually.
Does anyone know how to flip me around so I'm not sideways?
Yeah, you got to turn your computer up on end.
This is a brand new computer, so I'm still getting used to it. I don't know how I ended up sideways, but we're okay.
Speaking of that, Marcia, did you get the link to the video I sent you?
Well, I was a little indisposed. I had some kind of allergic reaction today, and I was in the emergency room for several hours. So I haven't had a chance to look at it. I know you sent one. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, I sent it to you, Jamie, and Barb.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live did a skit on people, for the first time they're getting into Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and it's hilarious. And it's just, the funniest things are always things that have more than a shred of truth in them. And just some of the stuff, people asking, are you wearing pants? I mean, it's just, those are all things that are, are really happening. Some people are struggling with, they're getting up close to the screen. Can you see me now? And, it is funny.
This has been a learning. I actually did one with my doctor from Mass Gen, and it went really well. I was really pleased with it. So it went well. It was good. So this is a good tool.
Well, they say teledoc is going to be the wave of the future here. It's driven by coronavirus, but prior to the coronavirus, I had gotten a notice from my health insurance company that in fact, Teladoc, I was signed up. It's part of my insurance policy now. And it told me how I could connect to Teladoc. I haven't had a need for it, but, you know, I think a lot more doctor visits are going to be done remotely in the future, even after this pandemic has passed.
Yeah, it was a funny, my original one back in August when I was up north, I actually ended up getting a bill for that said it wasn't covered by the insurance. I haven't gone back to argue with them or anything, but so that it's amazing how things have changed since August, and that was because it was a little hospital up in Wolfboro that I had to go to first. But
most insurance companies now are adding teledoctoring to their policies because people need it in light of the current pandemic. But you know, frankly, it probably also saves them money. You know, so.
Well, in this case, you're talking small hospital up in Wolfboro, and they didn't have the doctor that they needed to look at what needed to be looked at. So.
Hello, everybody. It's 6:31, so we can try to get started. I see we have 3 members anyways. Is Donna Masucci out there?
Yes, I am.
All right. Ron Allard, are you present?
Yes, I am.
All right. And Steve Diamond, did you make it in?
I just admitted it.
Okay. John Huckins is bringing him on board now. So it is, welcome everybody to the May 19th meeting of the Barrington Planning Board. As chair of the Barrington Planning Board, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, in accordance with the Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are utilizing the Microsoft Teams for this electronic meeting. All members of the boards have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Microsoft Team, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following phone number, 603-664-0240, and through the conference ID to join team. Tonight in attendance, we have Code Enforcement Officer John Huckins, Town Planner Marcia Gassis, Administrative Assistant Barbara Irvine, myself, James Jennison, Jeff Brand, Steve Diamond, Donna Masucci, Ron Allard, and Andy Knapp, and not present is Rondi Boyer. We will move the minutes to the end. I think that's our new norm, just to make sure we have time for regular business. And we'll start right in with number 2 on the agenda, which is Drew Pond LLC. Is Chris Berry here? No Chris Berry? Well, let's do the sorry.
This is James Hayden. Oh, sorry.
Oh, hi, James.
Surveying. Hey, how's it going?
Good. You're here presenting on Drew Pond?
Yep, on behalf of DuPont, asking for an extension for both 23816V19SR.
All right. Does the board have any questions in regards to the extension for 23816V-19SR?
No.
No. Hearing none. All right, I would entertain a motion to continue for 1 year from today's date, which would be 5/19/2021.
Jeff Brand makes a motion to for change your application to create SR.
Andy Knapp, I'll second it.
A motion by Jeff Brand and seconded by Andy Knapp. We will have a roll call vote. We'll start with Donna.
Masucci, aye.
Diamond, if you're here. Come back to you. Knapp,
Aye.
Allard,
Allard, aye.
Bran,
Fran, aye.
Jennison, aye. Diamond, do we have you?
I see Diamond still muted.
But he's with us.
He's shown as a participant, but I see it has the symbol of him being muted.
All right. We have adequate amount of votes to carry, so the extension is granted for 1 year.
1 year? Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you, Mr. Chairman, a member of the planning board.
You're welcome. The site review proposal, is that correct?
Thank you for your time.
Does he have other business? I see the second thing on the agenda. Is that just the way it's written, John?
No, that's all part of the same one.
Okay, all right.
One just lists the application, and then 2 is the request for the 1-year extension, but they're together. It's just so that you can understand where it came from.
All right, I thought they were looking to start the roads, but wait on the other things. All right, well, moving on to number 3 then. We have 250-88-RCSR Farmers Market, owner Stephen Mazurakis, and a request by applicant Donna Masucci. Donna?
We should ask Donna to recuse herself.
Yes, I'd like to.
Is now
recuse my-
exiting.
All right, for the record, Donna Masucci has recused herself, and are you the presenter as well, Donna?
Yes, I am.
All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, dear Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I would like to propose a approval for a farmer's market on 45 Commerce Way in Barrington, which is now a BVS Family and Child Enrichment Center. It planned to be on a Saturday or Sunday, dependent on the Commerce Way business traffic hours as needed. I'd like to work that out with my neighbors. And it would be held basically from 8 o'clock to 1. And then there would also be, in October, I'd like to have a Halloween or a fall festival where my families and their friends would be invited to do pumpkin carving, face painting, stuff like that. I did ask Chief Walker about this. He said he had no problem with it, just to make sure that we park on one side of the road so his vehicles can get back and forth, just in case. Did talk to the police department, and they also said they were fine with it. See no problems with this.
All right, thank you. Does board members have any question about the application first?
About the details of the application or just the application?
The application and the details of it, so we can accept the application and then move on to items if we have any other questions.
Well, I do have some questions.
Yeah. We
Okay.
could-
I don't know that it necessarily affects the substance of the application, although I do have I do have a question with regards to looking at the first sheet of the plan. It shows where the tables are, and also there's the stated intent to park on the street. My question deals with handicap parking. There are designated handicap parking spots which would have tables through them. What are going to be the accommodations for handicapped people to park?
Good question, Jeff. So the driveway is an L shape. I'm getting an echo.
I'm sorry,
Right,
Don.
so-
I couldn't, I can't understand you.
Right, I'm getting an echo. It's what's going on.
Okay.
I can't hear you.
You're sounding better now, Donna. Can you hear us?
Okay, yeah, I can, yes, there's not an echo now. Thank you, I appreciate that. The parking would be along Commerce Way. I probably could designate a couple of handicaps right at the end of the driveway, where the 50-foot right-of-way print is at the very bottom where it says Commerce Way. The L shape is going to be closed off where the parking is, where you see the handicap. That would be part of the farmer's market.
So you're saying you could put a couple of handicap spots at the actual exit from the parking lot, where that's going to be closed off because of the tables and the market, then you could have a couple of spots there.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I can finish up my questions and then we can move on. So you, on the next sheet, you show location of a porta potty, and I have two questions about that. One is what it doesn't reflect, which is certainly necessary for both sanitary reasons and given the current COVID-19, is there going to be a hand washing station there?
Yes, and the porta potty has one right inside of it. If you go to a lot of the like what do you call those farms that you go pick stuff in, they actually have those. I've noticed them, and I did order one for that, where it has the hand washing inside.
Just out of curiosity, why are you not using the bathrooms in the building?
Because it's a place of business, and I don't want people, the public, tramping in and out of it. There is a lot of valuable toys as items. Again, the germs, COVID-19 is one of them. It can't be watched, it can't be monitored, so the building will be locked.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
Sorry, I was muted. I will accept, I'm looking for an motion to accept the application as complete.
Andy Knapp, I'll make the motion to accept applicant 250-88 RC-SR Farmers Market as complete.
I second.
Motion by Andy Knapp and seconded by Jeff Brand. Roll call vote, Ron Allard,
Allard, aye.
Andy Knapp,
Aye.
Steve Diamond,
Diamond, aye.
Jeff Brand,
Brand, aye.
James Jennison, aye. The application is accepted as complete. Before we open public comment, does the board have any more questions? I hear none. We will open public comment at this time. Is there anybody that would like to speak on behalf? You can also type a message into the box. And I believe *6 is the way to unmute your phone. Hearing none, we'll close public comment. Does the board have any further questions before I read the draft notice of decision? We'll read the draft notice decision. Dear applicant, this is to inform you that the Barrington Planning Board has conditionally approved your application referenced above. All of the precedent conditions below must be met by the applicant at the expense of the applicant prior to opening. The code enforcement officer will sign off on all requirements have been met prior to operation of the approved use. Hours of operation for farmers market, either Saturday or Sunday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. with setup from 7 to 7:30 a.m. and takedown between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. Hours for fall gatherings would be between 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Hours will be dependent upon commercial traffic on Commerce Way. Approved dumpster location is the existing location of the dumpster. A porta potty is to be located to the left of the dumpster. Authorization is required from the police department for parking on Commerce Way prior to each event. Please note if all the conditions are not met within 6 calendar months of the day, the board's approval will be considered to have lapsed unless a mutual agreeable extension has been granted by the board. I am looking for a motion to.
Before we get the motion, I have one additional question here.
Sure.
Given that talking about the police chief said parking on one side.
Correct.
Should that be in the and the other, I guess, the follow-up question to that is, should we require some temporary signage that shows no parking on one side of the Commerce Way?
I think that would be appropriate to put up some temporary signage for parking, just so it would be difficult to control parking without some form of. Are you amenable to that, Donna?
Absolutely, no problem with that.
All right, so we'll add that to the draft notice of decision to provide temporary signage to indicate appropriate parking. And what was the other thing, Jeff? Was there another one?
Well, I mean, they were related. That something about the parking where it's only on one side, or it could be parking restricted to one side of Commerce Way with appropriate signage.
Yeah. I think. Yeah.
So the only question I have is, technically under the ordinance, the police chief or his designee would have to give the permit for the parking on the town road.
Right.
So really it's up to the police department. But I see, I want to note it on the notice of decision. It's just what is the most appropriate way.
Well, the police chief has already said, right, that there can be only parking on one side.
Fire chief said one side.
Yeah, fire.
Police said they just have to be notified each time.
Fire chief said parking on one side.
Fire chief, right?
Right. And we're asking as a board that there be some temporary signage, just so people know which side they can't park on. So that, I mean, they both seem appropriate to go here. That doesn't interfere or contradict anything that the police chief has said. Right.
And I think the simplest way would be to just, no parking this side as opposed to park here.
Right, right. I agree. So that's why I said in the conditions precedent or here or in the notice of decision that we simply say parking restricted to one side of Commerce Way with appropriate signage, whatever that is.
All right. So that we'll rewrite that last sentence to say authorization required from police department for parking on one side of Commerce Way with appropriate signage.
Yeah, I think that's the cleanest way.
Sounds
And in the
good.
same section, I'd recommend you put in the handicap parking requirement.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
And location of designated handicap parking. So I've got authorization required from police department for parking on one side of Commerce Way with appropriate signage to designate handicap spaces and
Parking?
proper, handicap parking spaces, but I'm trying to, how to write which side of the road.
Well, that's what I'm confused about because it goes, it's a horseshoe. So if somebody comes from the north side, going north, they're going to want to hang a left and want to park
Right.
on the left. You know what I'm saying? The ones that come south will want to go on the south side.
Right.
Yeah, pick a side, any side. You just have to pick one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if the fire chief says he wants them on one side, but the police says you can park them on both sides, I guess the police, I think, control parking.
The only issue is passage, I think, is the
Right.
problem. Because they're all narrow roads. Maybe that one's 22 feet, I'm not sure.
I
Yeah,
think I would go more.
Don, I recommend you do it on your side of the parking
Yeah.
on your side of the building, so you know people crossing across the road.
I would agree.
And I agree with you. And there's a sister in at Associate Fires that would, if I let him park on that side, it would obstruct it if the fire chief had to come through.
well, the police chief, yeah, they may technically be in control of the codes. However, the fire chief, not only worried about you and your building, but he's also has to worry about all the other buildings.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe a side at the end of the road, farmer's market, enter here, and hopefully they'll turn the right way and keep them on the right side of the road.
There you go.
Yeah.
I got it.
All right. So with
That's
that,
it being a loop.
with that amendment, adjustment to the notice of decision, do we have any other questions, comments? Well,
The only comment I would make is under the RC area, this appears to be a specifically authorized activity.
It is a specifically authorized activity, you're saying?
Based on my read, yes.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the farmer's market.
I will make a motion to approve application 250-88-13-SR as per the notice of decision as amended.
I'll second that.
I believe that was Andy Knapp with a second.
Yes, it is.
Jeff Dime with the motion. Ron Allard, roll call vote.
Allard, aye.
Knapp,
Nap aye.
Diamond,
And I.
got it. Bran,
Green eye.
Jennison, I. Congratulations, Donna, and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. For the record, Donna will resume as member of the board. And moving on to the next case, we have number 4, 24932 and 250-133 NR-19-SR amend, DWS times 2 Holdings LLC. I think we have Derek today, or?
I think similar to the last one, these are all, these two, they're the same. They're
Yep.
just, one of them's just referencing the request for an amendment. The other one's a full application.
Ray, you presenting and ready?
Actually, Derek is basically going to discuss this tonight because he
Okay.
can better talk about his the way where the function's going to be. So I'm just here in case he has some other questions or if the board has other questions.
Very good. Derek, you with us?
I am. Good evening,
Hi,
gentlemen.
Derek.
Mr. Chairman and the board, you guys are moving at warp speed. I didn't expect to talk till 9.
I know.
So this is,
We're getting
You
used
guys
to
are
the new
getting this-
format, yeah.
the system is getting well oiled. Well, I am before you. I don't want to assume, did everybody get a chance to read the narrative letters that were sent in? And understand why there were 2 of them and so on and the differing positions? I can review or answer any questions with regard to the letters, but if everybody read them and everybody is good without questions, then I think we can just briefly review the phases and then open it up for questions, or the proposed phases.
Yeah, I think I've got a general understanding of what you're looking to do. Does anybody else need more before we move on to the phases? All right, well,
I'm good. I had a chance to review it.
Jeff, you were saying?
I had time to review it.
All right.
Although I have to say, for the entire board, should have been submitted earlier, but I've had time to review.
All right, well, let's move on and summarize, and we'll go over the phases, Derek, as you're ready.
Beautiful. So due to the business impact on Wildlife Encounters revenue, government mandated shutdown of schools, et cetera, mid-March, we went to a zero revenue position. I was before you in April, and, thankful to receive the conditional approval for the site plan. Was unaware that I would not be able to proceed, as soon as government relaxation on the shutdown was allowed, due to the CO for the use. So I guess that's the first relief that we're looking for here. And I think that the letter explained why. We are currently starting to generate revenue teaching virtual classes from here at the farmhouse. I think that technically is probably a violation of the regulations because it is conducting educational activity for commercial purposes on the 270 Beauty Hill property without a CO for the use. So if nothing else, just allowing 1 or 2 of my staff to park here to be able to conduct those activities would in itself be the most base justification for asking for some relief on what I understand is currently the requirement to complete major development of the proposed and conditionally approved separate driveway, parking lot, and detention pond before receiving the CO for the use. Given the fact that project, the estimates that I have been given, if I were to contract it completely out to an independent professional, would cost between $80,000 and $100,000. There is, just with no revenue coming in, no possibility of receiving funding for this. So we're looking for, as every other business in society is, a flex plan, working with various authorities and regulatory bodies, including yourself at the community level, in order to be able to start to generate revenue and start to serve our customers. So we are looking to, and I don't know if Ray wants to screen share it, or actually it might be included further down in this document. I see you scanned everything. We are looking to make use of the already existing parking lot with slight modification from what was conditionally approved before. Originally, the upper parking lot's purpose was going to be for residential, employee, and handicapped access. And we're looking to temporarily expand that to have a few parking spots to accommodate non-handicapped customers. Based on the governor's announcement yesterday, we can now do outdoor activities following COVID-19 safety guidelines for groups of up to 10 people. So we are looking to have a couple of parking spots available up here that the town would approve for non-handicapped use that we could use should you grant John the ability to issue the certificate of occupancy for the use. So that would be kind of phase 1. I know that you've reviewed the plan, and I'm sure that's why Ray is here. You'll have questions about clearances and lighting and things of that nature. Okay. So should we continue to reopen? Should we not have a massive shutdown again in the fall? Should schools resume? Then our revenue, I anticipate, will become strong again, and we will be able to submit for a major commercial loan for improvement will allow us to continue with the renovation of the barn and hopefully get to the point where we would be able to use that for activities. Just to clarify, the phase 1 part and doing any type of limited activities in the near term, the barn is not completed as far as reconstruction. It has not received a certificate of occupancy for the building. So the building itself would not be accessible to the public for use at all until it gets to a point where we have a CO for that building. So that's what we're defining as phase 2, get that building completed and a CO for that so that animals can occupy it and we can start to do activities, educational activities on the second floor. Phase 3, which we are anticipating optimistically, would be late 2020 or realistically 2021, summer of 21, major commercial financing in order to proceed with the new curb cut, which would have to be approved by the town, and clearing and construction of the driveway, parking lot, and detention pond. And so this is really just taking the overall conditionally approved site plan and putting a logical sequence to what we think realistically we would be able to do given the current societal and economic and regulatory environment that we're all working with.
All right, thank you. Does the board have any questions? I don't know if we want to take it by phases and work each phase or go for the whole, but we'll take questions.
Well, one for Marcia and John is, and looking at the draft notice of decision, so in there are the standard words about if all the precedent conditions are not met within 6 calendar months to the day, board's approval will be considered lapse unless there's an extension. How is this going to work with a phased plan?
The things that are required to be put on the plan, that was the first part of that notice of decision, which was it? I don't have it in front of me. I think it was the wetland permit number, the septic design number. There was a couple of things that was.
There was a lighting plan for the parking lot.
Yeah, and then there was something else I thought had to be added too. And that, do I have it?
Yeah, okay.
But
the question is, with the phasing that we have, to do phase 1, that the expectation is that would follow the normal course, and therefore phase 1 would be any precedent conditions.
Well, what happens is when you meet those precedent conditions and all the stuff put on the plan and Jamie signs it, then I can give him his CO for phase 1 if you allow him to use that upper parking lot for the stuff in the home. When he finishes the barn and gets the bathrooms put in there, the septic and stuff put in, then I give him his certificate for phase 2. And then when he gets his parking lot done, and I left that condition in there about the engineer reviewing it to make sure it was built to that standard. When I get that report back, then I can give him his CO for phase 3. And then he didn't go into phase 4, but phase 4 was that lower building that really had conditional approval as part of the other one. If that the one that you wouldn't be seeing from the road that he showed in the lower space. But once he gets that paper signed by Jamie, he's met the conditions as far as the timing goes. And once he opens phase 1, he kind of has a vesting. So the other ones, unless you set a specific time to when those have to be completed, then he wouldn't have to come back to the board, even if it took him an extra year, unless you guys to when that other bond had to be done.
No, I just want to know, because there is a clock, when does the clock?
I think what John is saying is the clock starts to get the precedent conditions met, which are amending the plan, those notes on the plan, a wetland permit, a septic permit, and the cut sheet for the parking lot lighting. Once those precedent conditions are met, if those are met within a year, he meets that clock. Then as phase 1 rolls out, If we deem that he's expended 25% of infrastructure at that point, he's vested into the project, and the project can take longer unless we put in time requirements of some sort.
I'm not proposing that.
No, so the first part is he has a year to meet conditions precedent, which is add a septic permit, a wetland permit. So he would need to do those three things, not construct everything within a year.
Yeah, by the way, that brings us back to the notice says 6 calendar months, but we're doing it at a year now, right? Because the state changed.
Yeah, that's correct. I had the old form that I just printed out. I didn't go back and change it. But the thing is, this still comes down to, before I can even give him the CO for the first use, we have to have the plan signed by Jamie, unless you guys make a different decision tonight.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page as to.
Well, I think that's what Derek wants too. Derek wants to be very clear to when he can do and what he can do and when he can do.
Right.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is that John can't issue the certificate of occupancy for the use to do any educational activity for commercial gain on this property until the state produces the wetlands permit. I already have the permit number for the septic, and until the lighting plan is completed and Jamie signs it.
Well, wait a minute. So do you have a wetland permit?
It's submitted to the state. We're just waiting for the state to turn it around.
Okay, so we can't hold up approvals of applications, and therefore, you know.
Well, your application would be approved, but I couldn't give him a CO if you still had the conditions of that wetland permit going on the plan, because until Jamie signs the plan, I can't give him a CO for anything unless you guys do something different in your approval.
We can't.
We've already approved it, Jeff. This is completely approved, but he can't use it. Is the issue here?
I understand. That's why. Why would we want to hold up his use or on his wetland permit? He's already submitted the application.
You could vote to have me issue the CO for phase 1, and then phase 2 could be done for the garage. I mean, the bond being finished, but phase 3 couldn't be done until those permit things are in. But it would have to be a decision you make here, because technically speaking, until those things are put on the plan and Jamie signs the plan, I'm not allowed to issue anything, because that's when you actually have a final approval.
I have a quick question.
Who's that speaking? I'm sorry.
It's Ray.
Oh, yep, Ray.
So my question is that the use permit, that was one application, and then the site plan was a different one. Can't so if the use permit was approved,
There was a conditional use permit, which allows that to be in the zone. It has nothing to do with actually granting the total use. It's saying that use is allowed in that zone once that conditional use permit was granted.
It'd be like someone coming in for a garage, a mechanic coming in, but then he never builds the garage and just does stuff on his front lawn. It's you know, he can't just start working on cars on his front lawn because he got a conditional use permit. He's got to build the garage and have all the facilities in place that go along with the garage. You know, it's kind of, if that makes more sense.
I think because of the conditions, and I think this board would have a justification to say phase 1 could be done with that upper parking lot, but the other phases can't be given a CO until we get that plan signed by Jamie, which gives him an opportunity to keep his business going until the permit comes back from the state.
Does that make sense?
You know, this is Ron Allard. For me, I think it makes sense. The construction piece is not going to happen until the second phase. So,
so
I'm
postponing, postponing the wetland permit to that second phase, making that contingent on the second phase, so he can use the upper driveway for phase 1 and get some income coming back in.
But does the use, I mean, some of the activities talking about going out and having trails out back, that's through the wetland area, that wetland crossing, right?
Correct. The permit would be to improve the crossing of the wetland.
So you need the wetland permit to do that because you've got that in phase 1.
Right.
Correct. I mean, I can certainly make trails. I can certainly walk kids on the existing woods roads and so on, but I can't actually improve a wetland crossing until I have the permit.
Yeah, that kind of is more for the.
That is more for phase one.
Right, and for basically getting, the compost manure, to go out there with a tractor, that type of trail.
Yeah, Ray's correct. Walking trails in the wetlands and walking through on little path things doesn't require a wetland permit. When you go to build the road where he could take his tractor and hold his manure out, that's where the wetland permit actually kicks in.
So the item that catches my attention in this phase one is when you look at amended approval to permit commencement of on-site activities with a maximum of 20 participants. And then it says, so long as activities are conducted in compliance with state and health guidance in order to control risks regarding health and safety are within the hours already established under the CUP. I don't perceive the hours as an issue. The facilities and the accommodations that you have for 20 people, because we couldn't just grant anybody to move forward in this without having approved and authorized accommodations for it. And I'm not trying to be someone who stonewalls this, because I'm all for business growth and development, but I'm just trying to figure out what is the accommodations of 20 people that we're specifying here? How does it meet the standards and codes that exist for this purpose?
Andy, I'm losing you. I'm getting all kinds of garbled.
That was really broken up, but let me try to address what I think you said. All right, so when we got conditional approval, first of all, we made an agreement with the board that, under normal conditions, pandemic didn't happen, everything moved forward, parking lot, detention pond, new driveway, all got built, that based on the number of parking spots and so on, we would be capped at a maximum of 60 participants on site at any one time. So obviously right now, due to government mandate, we are limited to groups of 10 people at any one time. However, that very well could be lifted 30 to 60 days from now. One of the other benchmarks that's commonly heard through this pandemic is no gatherings of greater than 50 people. So then I was looking at and working with Ray and saying, all right, with this special flex request for using the upper parking lot for non-handicapped customer parking, we are basically designating and marking out 4 spots. And based on the average of a maximum of 5 passengers per vehicle, plus obviously having some staff here and something like that, I figured 20, 24, something like that. Again, I wrote that over my second cup of coffee the other morning, so that is language that you are welcome to tweak. But it was just a part of my narrative letter and numbers that I thought were reasonable.
So Andy, going back to you, do you think that 20 is unreasonable for the parking area? Is that what your concern is?
It's a combination of the parking area and what type of facilities are we talking about using here? Are we talking about outdoor facility?
It's 77-acre woods.
They're showing porta potties by the back corner of the garage.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that it's outdoor activities and virtual learning from the farmhouse. So nobody would be entering the farmhouse for classes, correct?
Correct. Or the barn.
Or the barn at this point. Now, you yourself put in phase 1 the wetland approval. Do you want to keep that in phase 1? Or are you looking to move that to a different phase to get you up and running sooner?
Well, I think that hitch on that is primarily how fast the state is going to turn it around, and then of course how soon I can physically get it done and financially get it done.
Right, and
so I don't know how it impacts your decision, but
the decision would be if you say I want to keep the wetland permit on phase 1, then I don't sign the plans until you provide the wetland permit. I sign it, and then you're up and running virtually. basically. If you say, I don't want to do any improvements to the wetland area and do the road until phase 2, then you have more time, you can get up and running now with the 20 people in the walks as it exists, but you can't do any construction in the wetland until
Sure.
phase 2 and you get that permit. So
Yeah,
I
no,
guess that's kind of
the
your
latter-
decision.
Yeah, the latter is fine because honestly, the major improvement of the trail that the wetlands permit was requested for was primarily to be able to get a tractor across those areas without doing significant damage to those wetland crossings. And that's really just for moving compost. And honestly, I got one animal here right now. So that it's not going to be an animal and, you know, any significant improvement to that or associated compost for quite some time.
Well, John, let me ask a question. So if we receive the wetland crossing permit, move that into phase 2, if he continues to pursue and gets the wetland permit, say 6 months from now or 3 months from now, is there anything to prohibit him from going ahead and improving wetland crossing?
No, once he gets that permit, he can start doing his improvements.
Right.
I think really what he's looking for is for me to be able to issue the CO for the use. And the walking trails isn't what requires the wetland permit. The hauling the manure out back is what required that wetland permit.
Right. So if we move that to phase 2, he gets his permit, he can go ahead, make the improvements, but by moving it to phase 2, it won't affect his certificate of occupancy to
Correct.
utilize
Right.
the facilities.
The only
Actually,
thing,
Jeff and John, my recommendation would be do a phase 1A. Make that a separate activity so he can do those separately from the barn and everything else.
But he doesn't have to come, Ron, he doesn't have to come back to get permission to start working the wetland. He just needs the wetland permit. And then once then he's theoretically in phase 2 and he can proceed at his own pace. And when he's ready, come in for the certificate of occupancy from phase 2, which would be a complete barn, washroom, handicap accessible facilities, sewage disposal system, and that wetland permit in hand. So
My point though is he might want to do the wetlands crossing separately.
Well,
not wrap it into the barn and all that other stuff.
Yeah, but that's why I asked. The fact is that's a state permitted action.
Right.
If he gets the permit, he doesn't have to come back to us. He can go ahead and improve the wetland, regardless, frankly, of what phase he's in.
Right.
Okay.
He just doesn't have a certificate of occupancy for the other part. It would be bundled into that. And I'm not opposed to a 1A, but.
we could just take the DES wetland crossing permit, just take it right out of 1. Don't even have it in any of the phases, because once he gets it, he can do the work. It's really not part of the use that he needs for phasing, other than when he starts to haul his manure. He can't go down across there until that's in. The only thing I did notice that I missed when I was going over it earlier, because I saw the porta potties on the plan, I just assumed that it was included in phase 1. So in phase 1, it should be noted that he's going to be using the porta potties like it shows on the plan.
Right, and you have to have, 1 porta potty for every 10 people?
I would have to look that up. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I think that's the guidance for restrooms.
I want a quick question for John, where if we remove the add wetland permit from phase 1, where would that be on, where would you get that on a plan at some point?
That's the decision the board would have to make, is when do you want all the stuff on the plan completed? Is that going to be before you go phase 2? Because you got to sign the plan at some time that you authorize the whole thing as the whole approval. But to give him a short-term window to open a little bit while he's waiting for a low impact, using the upper parking lot and doing some classes out of his house and some nature walks where he can't go to the schools to operate his business. You know, if it wasn't for this COVID thing going on, I would say he's got to just get his plan done. But I think we're in a position to where the town needs to work with his businesses in order to keep them alive.
Yeah.
John and Jamie, I believe you actually have to have phase 2 in place, or you have to have wetlands crossing permit in place in order for phase 2 to proceed.
That works for me if it works for Derek and everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Okay.
seems to make sense, and it's
'Cause it
not
does-
until he gets the barn finished that he's gonna really fully staff the place, utilizing the barn. He'll have many more animals. He'll really have much more of a need to have that crossing out there.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've got one lockdown is use existing parking for virtual learning from the farmhouse. He can create his nature trails, but not in the wetland for transport, I guess, but and use the back property, education spaces, and we're gonna add the porta potties. And then phase 2 would be complete the barn with a washroom, handicap accessible facility, new sewage disposal system, and the wetland crossing permit. I think that's pretty good.
And that's when the plan would get signed too, the final plan? Because at what point in time
Yeah.
do you sign the final plan at phase 2?
I think phase 2, because he'll have the septic, he already has a septic permit, so you can do that. He could remove note 7 from the cover sheet, and you'll have up until the end of phase 2 to come up with a lighting plan for the big parking lot.
Because
Does that
that's
make
being
sense?
constructed in phase 3.
Right. Does that make sense, Derek?
Yeah, I'm pretty much already there with the lighting plan anyway, but again, when is that parking lot actually going to exist? It's not going to be for a while, and it's it's backburnered right now. The company has to survive long enough
Yeah.
to grow big enough to
We got that.
justify creating it.
But it just gives you to the end of phase 2 to supply us that lighting plan.
Okay.
And then we look at it and I sign the plan and you're good to go for everything.
Okay.
And then phase 3 would be driveway, parking lot, and approved stormwater system. The only hitch there is that would have to carry the caveat of being inspected by the engineer to make sure it's built correctly. And then phase 4 would be your new educational building. Does the board have any comments on those? I kind of rambled through those three.
If I remember correctly, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but with respect to needing that improved wetland crossing, that was desirable for him to be able to take the tractor out back, but he currently has a route that he can utilize to get to the back of the property. He needs to.
Absolutely.
But this is Ray again,
Yep.
and I wanted to actually just get clarification on what you were asking when it came to the wetland crossing again, because it was almost sounded like you were saying the wetland crossing had to be done before phase 2 could begin, which I don't quite see why.
No.
Okay.
No,
All right.
it has to, we need the wetland permit number before phase 2 certificate of occupancy can be granted, so I can sign the plan.
Right. So, you need basically the final plan set to be ready, which includes the wetland crossing number. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So as soon as he gets that wetland permit in hand, he can start the work. But as soon as he's done phase 2 and he wants a certificate of occupancy, as long as that permit number's on the plan and everything else is done, and I can sign the plan and John can grant, the CO, you're moving on.
But if he can get all this stuff done before the year's up, he could get Jamie to sign the plan, so then you don't have to worry about going back to the planning board for an extension. Because once that plan is signed, then you've met the requirements.
Okay. Just one question to clarify. This is Derek again. You're saying that for phase 2 completion of the barn, I will not be able to get a certificate of occupancy. I will not be able to house animals in the barn, nor will I be able to have any members of the public on the second floor until the downstairs washroom / handicap bathroom and septic are in.
That's what you put on phase 2.
Okay.
That was what you wrote in there for it.
Okay. If that's what you're comfortable with.
Then at that time, your porta potties go away. If you wanted something different, you should have written it in there. That's what you had listed as phase 2.
I'm comfortable with that. That's what we would have approved.
Yeah. What I wrote was as cash flow allows to build that in. In the meantime, handicapped and non-handicapped accessible portable potties and wash stations will be provided. So my intention with that language was to say, as soon as the barn is deemed from a public safety standpoint able to be occupied, then I can start to get a few more animals into that barn. I can start to bring maybe, 10 summer camp kids up to the second floor. They still have the ability to wash their hands and use restroom facilities through the porta potties, because building in that bathroom and the leach field might be a little bit later just because it's a bigger financial nut to crack.
All right. So, John, do you have an opinion on moving washrooms and facilities, sewage disposal system to phase 3? Do you
Or
see any?
2B.
Yeah, phase 3 or 2B or something. I mean, I guess we want to make it clear, as long as he's got sanitation on site that meets the requirement. But I know that when this thing first started, there was an issue of having a septic put in place because of the amount of water and the animal stuff. So at what point does the barn get built and use it? Now, you wanted those facilities ready. That's a board decision, not my decision.
So how, from a inspection standpoint, would you approve the barn without the facilities?
With those porta potties and stuff, is if he had the correct number of porta potties and wash stations and stuff with the amount of people he had there, that would meet the minimum sanitation requirement. But I know in past discussions, the board had an issue of if he puts running water in the pond to work with the animals, cleaning and other stuff, that's the reason why it got brought up, having a septic in the bathroom.
Right, because once you have running water, and you're washing things out, you're gonna have a disposal, and it's got to go somewhere.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not knowledgeable enough about farming, but you wouldn't dispose of animal sewage in your leach field, would you?
No, it wasn't that. It's the washing out of equipment and keeping things cleaned up. Usually you got like a wash sink and stuff, and there's a lot of times they got like a sanitation rinse and stuff like that to keep all his stuff clean. And his animals, you don't just keep an old bowl and keep refilling it without cleaning stuff out.
Sure. Do you see a workaround for that, Derek, as far as?
Well, I guess here's one of my concerns. If we are able to, say, in the next 30 to 60 days, get the barn structurally and public safety, requirements met to the point where we could get a CO for safety, for occupancy, and get a few animals in it and so on. I mean, right now I've got no water out to either building. The donkey's wash bucket I bring in and I wash in the house. And if you add 2 or 3 other animals, that same protocols is not a burdensome thing. But I'm like, all right, so if I'm running a small, summer day camp 3-hour experience, or I'm hosting some sort of, private nature walk or something like that, we're supposed to, by government mandate right now, doing everything 100% outside. But if we have a storm blow in, if we have one of those microbursts, if we have some sort of an emergency and I have to get the public undercover, I want to be able to go into that barn, and I don't need a bathroom for that. I just need to be able to legally do it.
Sure. I guess my concern more is from a animal handling standpoint and the guidelines you have to follow for that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you have adequate sanitization? Can you meet an appropriate sanitizing standard for those animals without water or sewer?
Yeah.
Not the people, because the people can be accommodated by the porta potties, we're saying.
Right.
I think we all agree, but it's the animals.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole purpose for having the washroom and the bathroom down there in that stall is to accommodate handicapped visitation. The animal presence in the barn is not going to be that intense that we're going to have massive spraying stuff down with chemicals, sanitization. Again, it's a dirt floor barn. When they go to the bathroom, it just goes into the ground. So we, like John said, we literally are just, wiping out water bowls and so on. And that can be easily done without actually having a wash basin and a whole septic system, at least for some time.
You run a hose down from the house. So I guess what I would propose is phase 2 be complete barn to house animals in limited human occupancy. then we can expand on that, and then do a 2B, that would be the bathrooms and septic.
Jamie, the name sanitation is simply. Can you hear me all right?
For a second, yep.
The nature of
Nothing.
the sanitation
You're breaking up, Steve.
state.
Can you dial in on your phone, Steve, so I can hear you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
Hey, Steve, last meeting, I think we recommended you call in. I think, given your continuing problems, that would be a good idea.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, we're waiting for Steve to try to find a better lifeline. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? A
As far
2-2B?
as the, no, I just want to chime in with Derek, educational system like mine and yours. It's one toilet per 20 people.
Thank you, Donna.
We do have 2 actually shown on the plan.
Oh, good. So you've got enough for 40. That's great.
Yeah, so Derek, what do you think about that phase, that adding that 2B phase? You know, the first to do house animals when the barn's complete, to house animals and limited human occupancy.
I think it allows me to meet my concerns as far as public safety and reducing risk, while at the same time, progressing with the project as quickly as means allow.
Right. It gives you a nice stepped approach.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I think keeping that number at 20, that we started with the 20, to keep that number at 20 seems appropriate.
And again, that, just to clarify, that number is static until the lower parking lot gets built and we have expanded parking.
Right.
So we're capped at 20 until we're done phase 3.
And I guess for safety, well, I was gonna say is there any other thoughts on that portion of it? I was gonna say lighting, limited to daylight hours in the barn, but I don't, if you have the barn completed, I'm guessing you're gonna have lighting in there at that point, so it may be overburdensome to add that.
And the existing parking lot does show the lighting that's on the buildings now, lighting the parking lot up.
Thank you. I was just about to say that.
Okay.
I just want to understand. I want to be clear on what we're talking about here. So we're saying if we give a certificate of occupancy for barn, that will be limited to housing of stock and limited use for human occupation, i.e. if there's a storm or something, we're not saying that we're going to use the second floor as a classroom. Is that what's being proposed?
Yes, something to that effect. I mean, I don't even have a problem it being used as long as the porta potties are outside and the barn's complete. It's just, it was more the.
Well, the barn's not going to be complete until the washrooms are installed, so that's why I'm trying to define when, if John's going to give us
structurally.
Yeah, there's been a conversation between Rick, Derek, and me about his use and what the building and the fire code requirements are going to be for what he's got to do to the barn to meet those uses. So I couldn't give the CO on the building until it meets my building codes and the fire chief signs off in his life safety code for the human and animal use combination. then the bathrooms and stuff that's being put in for that handicap thing, even if that's done after he's using the building already, like Jamie said, the porta potties will be there, but the porta potties would have to stay until he has enough bathrooms on site to handle all the people that are going to be involved before those leave. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense, John.
Okay.
Jamie,
Yes, Steve, we got you back.
I got rid of the video. Hopefully that will be better.
It
My
is-
understanding about my understanding of the sanitation concern with animals is simply you don't want bedding a drip that keeps it wet.
Steve, are you on your phone right now?
No, I
Because you're still breaking up.
all right, I'm going to the phone.
I believe Steve was alluding to something about a bedding drip. I could be way off base there. I'm just guessing from what he said. Does that make sense to you, Derek?
I'm pretty sure his thought process is into the direction of animal husbandry stuff. I think we should just give him the opportunity to speak his mind and
All right.
have his say.
And then so
Yeah, we're trying to do so we can.
well, while we're waiting, I think we're good on 2 and 2B, and then 3, the driveway, parking lot, and stormwater system. I don't think we need to tweak anything there. By then, hopefully, you'll have funds and availability, and you those seem to be all one kind of project. You really wouldn't chop those up. And then 4 would be your big building, and that's
Right.
going to be all code enforcement type stuff anyway. So I
Yeah.
think those make logical steps. And we'll just wait for Steve to come back to the Senate.
And Derek, to me, you're right. Phase 3 with the parking lot would be where you can go to 60.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I heard Steve come in here. Steve, you there?
I'm trying to.
Oh, that's not good.
Not yet.
That's not good.
It's more like Morse code than than telephone.
Steve, time can you hear me?
Stop it, Jeff.
No, I know. Steve must be frustrated. He's trying.
I'm here now. I'm here.
Oh, hello. Hey, Steve.
All right. So the only other thing I wanted to ask, Derek, it's realistic because you're using camps and school clientele that full occupancy or close to it of vehicles is likely?
For phase 1 and phase 2, full occupancy would be 4 vehicles.
I'm saying each vehicle is likely to have a bunch of people. It's not going to be one person coming in each car.
I mean, I certainly think it could be 1 or 2, or it could be a minivan. But again, that's why we put the cap on 20 people as well. So whether those 20 people clown car in a Volkswagen bus, or they come in 4 different vehicles, that's on a case-by-case basis.
Well, but 20 is the max. But if only
Correct.
2 people per car, then you're going to get 8 people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it also got to keep in mind that there's a handicap spot too. So there could be 5 cars there again. So it's just it's the cap of the people.
Right.
Was there something else, Steve?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Do we have any other questions, concerns, comments? And I just wanted to reiterate, Derek, that once you get to phase 3, the driveway, parking lot, and stormwater, that would trigger that third-party review of an engineer to make sure it was constructed properly. That wouldn't be on John to say that you put your driveway in right.
Right.
Okay. Anybody, any questions? All right, well, I will read through this draft notice. Well, we're going to open this up to public comment. We've talked about a lot, so I think it makes sense. Let's open that up to public comment at this time. If anybody's out there that would like to speak. Hearing none, we'll close public comment. I will read the draft notice of decision. Dear applicant, this is to inform you that the Barrington Planning Board has conditionally approved your application referenced above. Your 3.4 conditional use permit was granted. I don't have the date, as well as your waivers for a boundary survey of entire lot, parking lot lighting, and minimal allowable diameter and storm drain. All of the precedent conditions below must be met by the applicant at the expense of the applicant prior to the plans being certified by the planning board. Certification of the plans is required prior to commencement of any site work or recording of any plans. Once these precedent conditions are met and the plans are certified, the approval is considered final. Please note that if all precedent conditions are not met within 1 year to the day, the board's approval will be considered to have lapsed unless a mutually agreed upon extension has been granted by the board. Conditions precedent. Add the following plan notes. Remove note 7 from cover sheet. Add septic permit number prior to the completion of phase 2. Add wetland permit number prior to the completion of 2B, I believe, and add cut sheet for parking lot lighting. Phase 1 would be use existing parking for virtual learning from the farmhouse, create nature trails and back property education spaces. And phase 2 would be complete the barn to house animals.
Could we modify that phase 1 to say that that can be granted, the CO can be granted before the plans are signed, just to make it clean?
Yep.
That, the discussion you had?
Yep. Phase 1, use existing parking, virtual learning from farmhouse, create nature trails and back property education spaces. Conditional use to be granted prior to signing of plans. Am I saying that right? Thanks.
Yeah, that works. I'm not gonna sign the plans and get all the other stuff.
Phase 2, complete the barn to house animals and the limited 20 people occupancy. Once approved by fire safety and building code. Phase 2B, completed barn with approved septic and washroom and handicap accessible facilities installed. Phase 3, driveway, parking lot, and approved stormwater systems.
On phase two, did you get the sewer disposal system? Because that was kind of listed as phase 1 before, but that would go under that, I mean, under 2. It should be part of the 2B that septic goes in then?
Yeah, 2B. Barn completed with approved septic and washrooms and handicap accessible facilities. Goes to phase 2B. Then phase 3, driveway, parking lot, and approved stormwater systems reviewed by engineer. Phase 4, educational building.
Jamie, before you go to on phase 3, do you want to make a note that that's where you go to 60? You're allowed to go 60 people, the full 60?
Yeah, parking lot, approved stormwater system reviewed by engineer and full capacity of 60. Phase 4, educational building. F, any further expansion of the scope of operation will require review by the planning board. G, add waivers to cover sheet. I'm sorry, someone?
Yeah, Jamie, Jeff. The education building, that in the phasing, he laid out that he would come before the board with the plans for the building. Should that be in there?
If you're gonna do that, there's no sense in needing phase 4. You would just say that any further development would come back in front of the board, and you could come back with that building for that. So it really wouldn't be phase 4, it'd be unless, but you kind of already proved the location. You really need a building.
That's why I was confused, John, because I thought we'd already approved that.
I thought it too. I think it was just a matter of you wanted some elevation plans or something on the building.
Right. Oh,
You
that's
approved the building location and the drainage around that building going to his retention pond, if I remember correctly.
That's true. We were looking for some elevations.
So it could be phase 4, supply elevation plans before buildings built.
I hate to put that in there in the event that for some reason, I mean, what are we going to do with them once he supplies them? We're not going to review them and go back and change anything.
You guys actually approved the building size where it really can't be seen from the road. It could be, once the building permit is issued for that building to meet the building code, I mean, then you could use it as phase 4. Because the way they dropped it down, you're really not going to see that from the road, from an aesthetic point of view.
So provide elevations to verify.
Actually, I'm thinking he doesn't even need them because I have his building permit application to build the building would be supplying, all the details of the building.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I think we approved the building.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. That's why I was confused by the statement that it's going to come back to the board, because we had already approved that building and we had discussed, he's going to have to come in with the building permit, and we went down and took the site walk to look at it. I was confused on why he was coming back to the board.
There's no need to.
Yeah. And that was just his letter, but that's not in the.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
The draft notice.
I just want to get clarification on that before we finish the notice.
Yeah. All right. I think F, any further expansion of the scope of operations require review by the planning board. G, add waivers to the cover sheet. Any outstanding fee shall be paid to the town. Prior obtaining board signature, the applicant shall submit 3 complete paper print sets and supporting documents as required in Article 3 with a letter explaining how the applicant addresses the conditions of approval. This shall include final and complete reports for all items submitted during review for the town of Barrington's files. The chairman shall endorse 3 copies of the approved plans meeting the conditions of approval upon receipt of an well, that's not in there anymore. Is this? We don't need the bond, right?
There's no bond.
The town shall retain a signed, approved, reproducible 11/17 in PDF format with supporting documents for town records. And to put it, I don't know if we need to put a note in there, that would be after 2B, right? Because that's when I'm signing it. General and subsequent conditions where no active and substantial work required under this approval has commenced upon the site within 2 years from the date the plan is signed. This approval shall expire. An extension not to exceed 1 year may be granted by majority vote of the board so long as it is applied for at least 30 days prior to the expiration date. The board may grant only one such extension for any proposed site plan. All other plans must be submitted to the board for review to ensure compliance with these and other town ordinances. Active and substantial work is defined in this section as being the expenditure of at least 25% of the infrastructure improvements required under this approval. Infrastructure shall mean in this instance the construction of road, storm drains, and improvements indicated on the site plan. Each phase will require a certificate of occupancy. The engineer shall certify the improvements have been installed as designed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for uses of phase 3. All right. Anything else before we have a vote? No, I would entertain a motion then to approve the amended, I don't know what we call it. Conditions of approval. Thank you.
I make a motion that we approve the condition, the amended conditions of approval for application 249-32 and 250-133-NR-19-R.
I second.
Motion by Ron Allard and seconded by Jeff Brand. Roll call vote. Jennison, I. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Diamond. One more time, Diamond.
Diamond, aye.
Masucci.
Masucci, aye.
Knapp.
Nap eye.
Allard.
Allard, aye.
You are approved. Congratulations. Good luck. Wish you the best.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
guys.
Thank you, board. You guys are great. Have a good night.
Great
Stay safe.
night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, what do we have? We'll go back to the meeting minutes. There they are. Anybody, any comments, questions, concerned about the meeting minutes? No? All right, hearing none. We'll still do a roll call just because we don't know if everybody's there. Jennison, I. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Diamond.
Diamond, aye.
Masucci.
Masucci, aye.
Knapp.
Aye.
Allard.
Allard, aye.
Minutes are approved as written. Reports from other committees. Nothing. Unfinished business.
What, Barbara, when do we have the, master plan on the agenda again? She there? Thank you.
March something 7th, I heard from the other room.
March.
I think she's saying July 7th, maybe?
All right, that sounds familiar.
July 7th, she said. July 7th.
All right, good.
Yeah, what was that
Before we
for,
go,
Marcia? I'm sorry.
That was the facilities and utilities master plan.
Okay, July 7th. That's a little ways off. Steve, were you trying to say something? No. All right.
Jamie?
Yes.
Yes, after since we saw some building permit applications on Longshore Drive, I decided to take a look out there, and I'm concerned that I don't think a fire truck could actually make it to the end of the road. I was wondering if we could send a letter to the fire chief at his convenience to do a dry run of that under ideal conditions and get back to us with his results.
I don't see why not. Does the rest of the board have any reason why it wouldn't be appropriate to ask the fire chief to do a dry run? I'm sure he's been down there and he'll have a quick answer.
Well, I certainly think it's a valid concern and question. My only question is that the purview of the planning board or should that come from the select board?
In my personal opinion, I think both. I think we certainly have interest in knowing when we do our recommendations. So I don't think it's.
I only raise the issue because the select board, they're the actual ones that would grant the building permit.
Right, and I
recommendation, but it's the select board, should have an interest in this.
Yep, and I mean, we can certainly ask Andy to move that along for us, or we could send a letter to them. What would you think, John or Marcia?
Well, am I on there?
Yep,
well,
you're on.
My only concern, and I mean, the fire chief is also required to make a recommendation to the select board. So are we looking to nullify his opinion or put our opinion, the planning board putting their opinion above police, fire chiefs, because police and fire are both supposed to basically sign off on those building permits and give their recommendation.
I guess I would, not speaking for Steve, but I think he would look, I don't know, so we always see those recommendations when we do ours, and I guess that may influence Steve's opinion, knowing what the fire chief has to say.
Good point. Good point. Because although Chief Walker does make his opinion, a lot of times you're the first one. The planning board's the first one in line. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Back to Jeff's point, though, do we write this letter to the fire chief or to the selectman?
You'd write it to the select.
Yeah, actually, the fire chief does do an inspection of the road, and he makes comment to the selectmen before they issue their building permit. I think what your request would be is if you could get the fire chief to make his recommendation before it comes to the planning board, so you guys could see what he has to say, not just for Long Shores, but for all of the building permits and class 6 and private roads, if I'm understanding this correctly.
But wouldn't that be a letter to the select board then, asking them to do that?
And I don't even
comment to you before you guys hear it.
Yeah, and I think we can just ask Andy, do we need a formal letter, or can we just pass that on to our ex officio to bring to the selectmen?
I'll bring it forward.
You'll get back to us?
No, I said I'll bring it forward to the board.
Thank you. And then Steve, if we don't have a remedy there, then we'll certainly discuss sending a letter out ourselves.
All right.
All right. Anything else? So it looks like our next meeting will be June 2nd. And who knows, maybe we'll be in person by then.
Oh, the other thing Barbara had brought up, typically you folks don't meet, do a second meeting necessarily in July and August. I wanted to know what your thoughts are on summer meeting.
I'm all for skipping them.
Second that.
Third
I
is,
think we should look at the agendas first and see how big our calendar is.
oh, Ron's the voice of reason here.
I don't know. I don't think the calendar's changed in a few hundred years or more. You know, it seems to be 30 or 31 days with the exception of leap year.
No, but Ron's right. We've had a pretty heavy workload for the last year. We're still dealing with things, and I noticed up on June 2nd, we've got Barrington Shores coming back.
Andy, we had a meeting that finished after midnight. We didn't get through the agenda. I don't think it's right to have people, the people who are on the agenda to be waiting until after midnight.
So we could, yeah, we don't have to make a decision now. We can take a look at what we've got coming in June, and we could decide in June whether to have the second meeting in July.
Yeah, I mean, I almost rather skip the first meet in July. It's the 4th weekend, but who knows what lockdowns will bring.
Well, yeah, we may be at home anyway, so we're looking for a diversion and want to do this anyway.
Right. All right. Well, yeah,
I think that's unlikely, Jeff, for me.
So we've got June 2nd. We'll make a decision on the July. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. All right. We'll see you all June 2nd. If there's no objection, meeting adjourned.
At exactly 8 o'clock.
Perfect. We're getting good. Well,
Right.
have a great night, everyone.
Be safe, everybody.
Multiple people are now exiting.